Hello everyone, this is Svetlana from Marcus Evans. Thank you all for attending today's webinar, Building with a Product Mindset, Data-First Approach to Digital Business, brought to you in partnership with Altimetric. Before we begin, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. As you can see, at the bottom of your screen are multiple application widgets you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We will try to answer as many as possible during the Q&A session, but if a fuller answer is needed or run out of time, we'll make sure to follow up with you in a separate email after the webinar. Additional help materials are available in the resource list. We encourage you to download any resources or bookmark any links you may find useful. For the best viewing experience, we recommend using a wired internet connection and closing any programs or browser sessions running in the background. You can find additional answers to some common technical issues located in the Help widget at the bottom of your screen. Please expect an email within 2 hours after the webinar with links to download the webinar slides and recording. At this point, I'd like to briefly introduce you to our moderator and host of the webinar, Shishir Saxena, APAC Head, Client Strategy and Transformation at Altimetric. Shishir, it is over to you now.
Thank you. You want to quickly introduce the presenters, or should we just go around the table, Svetlana?
Yes, we can start with introductions to the presenters.
Excellent. So very good to be here in this webinar. My name is Shishir Saxena. I'm the APAC Head for Client Strategy and Transformation, like Svetlana said. We are a digital business company. We help organizations make the most of digital by leveraging a bite-sized approach to transformation. And we do understand the importance of having data at the heart of it as a single source of truth to make all of that very real. So very good to be here. I would love to have my participants here also introduce themselves. So over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Shishir. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Bozenek. I'm Director of Innovation for a private bank here in Singapore, where we are focusing on high perceived value hypotheses that we are driving using design thinking. Then we pilot and we get feedback at scale until the delivery of the project, where we focus on two main category of innovation. First one is about igniting new growth for the bank. And the second one will be to protect our core business, primarily working on process efficiency project.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Rajneesh, do you want to quickly introduce yourself too?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Rajneesh Narula. I'm the Director of Business Excellence at the Pfizer manufacturing facility in Singapore. We manufacture active pharmaceutical ingredients, mainly through the chemical process here in Singapore. In my current role, I'm looking at the operational excellence, driving through the digital transformation. Really passionate about continuous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajneesh. Happy to have you here. Nisanka, would love to hear from you too.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Shishir. Yeah, my name is Nisanka. I work in Commonwealth Bank, Australia. My apologies, my camera is not connecting with the On24 system for some reason today. So I work in consumer lending as part of the retail banking services. And we do look at, as my role is on digital transformation also, and also looking for new opportunities where we can extend our products or develop new products for our customers. And it's in a very exciting time. As we all know, the banks are going through a lot of transformation, getting a lot of competition from fintechs and global tech giants. So it's an exciting time, and happy to be here to share my experiences and listen to all of you. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Good. So folks, as you see, we have a very varied panel here, and the idea was to bring you different perspectives from industries on this topic that we have chosen, which is building with a product mindset, a data-first approach towards digital business. Now, a lot has happened in the last 2.5 years, right? So if you really look at it, we've gone through some tough times, all of us personally and professionally, with the way the economy has fluctuated with the impact of the pandemic, and then now we have supply chain crisis, then we have geopolitical issues. So it's not been a smooth sail for many reasons, and it doesn't look like settling down very soon. this has a profound impact on how companies make decisions, right? Fundamentally, your horizon of decision making, your validity of a decision over time, everything comes into question with this sort of a variety of things happening around us. So, my first question is just to get a high level view from all the speakers here on how has decision making evolved in your organization, right? Over time, and more specifically with what has happened in off late. And in your charter, in your role, because we have speakers from different parts of the business, different charters, would love to hear from you, maybe Rajneesh, in your space, how has decision making evolved and changed?
Yeah, so in manufacturing, I've seen the evolution from like very simple manufacturing facility, manufacturing single product here, to a lot more diverse and manufacturing a lot of products, and adding a lot of digital systems. So over the time, over the last 20 years, everything has been digitalized, and manufacturing, supply chain, laboratory, investigations, management, everything has its own systems. So gradually, our decision making has become a lot more data driven, right? So we always say that data driven performance management. So that has really made it easier and consistent for people to connect the dots rather than go by the limited information, or trying to solve something without fully understanding where the problem is, and wasting the resources and time and effort, right? So really, it's the availability of the data and ability to connect the data that has given the power to the various tiers of our organization. So we have very clearly organized ourselves into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. We are able to systematically use that data to make the right decisions at the right level. Yeah. So that's that evolution I've seen in the last rapidly, more rapidly in I would say the last 5 years.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point, what you mentioned about a tiered approach, because different levels in the organization, whether you're a frontline decision maker or you are actually somebody who rolls up the data to make a strategy decision, it should be presented to you in a form that your role can be more successful and you can add that value. So that's a point probably we'll come back to. Rajni, it's a great point here. Nisanka, what do you think? Consumer lending is a very exciting space with more and more data points available to decide credit worthiness of people. A lot of fintechs are jumping into the bandwagon. So how has decision making in your space evolved?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting question, Shishir. Yeah. So I work in one of the consumer lending is, for example, credit cards. In Australia, we have more than 13 million customers who are using credit card products, and all of you know that. I mean, it's they spent about, I think last year, more than $170 billion on everyday spend. It is a very changing dynamic, and so it used to be a very stable business 10 years ago, but with the changes and competition, we have seen a lot of new competition, and the way we need to really look at how we want to make decisions fast has changed. So it just got really distributed, and it given enable different teams. So we have our teams who are improving customer experience, improving, developing new products, developing new features for adjacent businesses. So it's all gone a lot distributed, but what we do is they all come back to the same team and collaborate a lot in the decision making, and look at data as a way to validate, and also look at how the customer feedback comes as to validate. So it just has a big change in the last few years.
Excellent point, Nisanka. And I think you also touched upon a very relevant thing, especially in the lending space, that the value chain is actually now more and more decomposed, right? So it's people are stepping in to do only one part of it. For example, somebody would come in only for documentation collection. The other guy would only come in for credit worthiness check. So you have these different players coming in the lending value chain. So the only way you can keep consistency in driving the outcome is to have data be the layer that actually brings it all together. And so the entire chain can make a good decision. So that's a very good point. Kevin, look forward to knowing from you. You have a very interesting charter in terms of driving innovation. How does it all look like for you from a decision-making perspective?
To be frank, we also adopted the same data-centric approach through innovation, and innovation is actually helping the bank through the framework that we have in place to help the organization take an educated decision on either a new business model or either on a new digital product that the bank is planning to launch. I think before innovation, it was a huge guess to go live with a product. Thanks to innovation, we have been able to de-risk this approach. Why? Is because we embed design thinking in the process. So therefore, we capture first the size of the prize through analysis to understand how valuable it is to run either or project. But then actually we capture data all along the process, from user data through a prototype, and then we test at scale. So we build pilot to have a larger volume of feedback, and this is where we will track the analytics as well. We are comfortable killing project at the early stage because it is cost efficient. And I think this really has changed in terms of mindset over the past 3.5 years now. It's from taking a decision without data. I think it's not the reality. I think the way it used to happen before innovation was set up in the bank is look at what the competitors are doing. So it was a good benchmark, but now we are able to capture internal or external clients' data in order to tailor the experience to our clients versus looking at what the competitors are doing. This is really the shift that happened.
That's a very interesting point, right? Because what you're saying is we are now in a position to run everything we do from an innovation with a very business case approach. And that business case is fed by data, which is collected, or rather the foundation of actually the decision to be taken, and then along the experimentation phase to see whether it's yielding the right value. So you can scale up, scale down, or even kill the initiative without having a lot of loss to the organization. That's a very good point. Great. So I think, needless to say, decision making has evolved quite a bit across the board, and we just saw that from the speakers. Now let's take a very industry specific approach to this, right? Rajneesh, if you really look at the pharma value chain, it has been called to do some superhuman things in the last 2 odd years, right? The world had to really respond to a crisis. I'm sure organizations like you were at the forefront of trying to deal with this. How do you think data and how it was leveraged in this crisis evolved? And how did you deal with this extreme shock to the system through using data properly?
Yeah, so you can say that this is like blessing in disguise, right? We started the journey of using data-driven decision making, right? So 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it was very, very useful. I would say that it was almost essential to tide through the pandemic situation, right? So during pandemic, we had to ensure that we continue to manufacture our APIs, plus also developing the newer vaccines and so on. So it all depended on this supply chain, because we are dependent on a lot of suppliers, and a lot of patients depend on us, drug product sites and the patients. So when you are dealing with so much complex situation where you have so many components or chemicals that you're getting from around the world, and the ships are coming to a halt, and there's a restriction and lockdowns happening. So you really need to be very clear on details, and you can do that only with data, right? So now we have the traditional systems like SAP, where all the planning, the ERP, enterprise resource planning, is done through SAP. But at times, in situations like this where you need to make quick decisions, you need to make even SAP a bit more smarter. So what I mean is smarter is like when you have a lot of data hidden in the system, how do you bring it to the surface so that it really tells you where the pinch points are and what actions you need to do, and how can you make very rapid decisions, right? So what we did, during this period, we really accelerated the adoption of the digital and visual analytical tools. So I'll give one or two examples briefly. We created our Tableau dashboards. So Tableau dashboards will take the data from SAP for our plant as well as other plants. So the entire data is actually going to a unified data hub. I'm pretty sure that all the companies are familiar with all this data cloud, data lake, right? So everything goes into one place. Now you have a lot of data, but you need to make sense of it. So make sense of the data with the Tableau dashboards. And the Tableau dashboards are so powerful that you can see the story in the form of a picture, and you see, what is happening, at which supply chain point there is a shortage, where is the risk, and what can we do about it. And then we also developed our own in-house data visualization tools, which are very, very customized. They are built on same layers like SAP, Tableau, but they are very, very powerful in terms of giving view to the senior management, that you can see it almost in real time, where there's a problem and what we need to do. So that helped us to avoid some of the supply chain pinpoints, where we could see that there could be a risk for this raw material from this country. So we expedited those, and then thankfully we were able to avoid any of those, and we were able to continue supplying our essential products to the patients. Yeah, so I think this was crucial. Another example, probably the whole world knows that about the vaccine, right? How we adopted the digital technologies even for the vaccine, that we were able to track each and every lot when it was transported from facility to the patient. We were able to track where it is, what's the temperature, and any shock with this, as the box dropped. So we used all the IIoT and real-time monitoring of each and every vial that was moving around the world around this time. Yeah. So a lot of all these things came together nicely. The digital, the IIoT, and it helped to in this situation to do things for the patients. Yeah.
Very interesting, and I think the world sees the benefit of you adopting that very early. So thank you for sharing that, Rajneesh. One point you made, I think, is very relevant as organizations look at really leveraging data. Is you talked about data being buried deep in systems of record like SAP. And I think that's a very good point, because sometimes it often leads to a situation where you have everything, but it's not usable for the business problem you're trying to solve, right? And the time it takes to pull all of that out to create those interesting views through which a decision can be made, it's not very intuitive. So as I heard you probably have created layers on top of it where data is staged, brought together, massaged, harmonized, and then presented back to the right decision makers in a way that they can take decisions very quickly. So very interesting, and I think something for all of us to learn from. Excellent. In retail CPG, and again, since we're talking about this, we have also seen this quite a bit, right? Because CPG, consumer packaged goods, is one of those industries where traditionally they would be supported by a very prominent ERP system at the backbone, just like you're talking about SAP. And this tendency to have it being used as a system of record, but not as a system of differentiation, where you can actually compete in the marketplace based on the insights you generate, doesn't really come out very easily. So completely resonate with your thought of how do you actually bring in the other innovation around there, whether it is intuitive dashboards or whether it is about having a single source of truth that layer on top of it, on top of a backend system to kind of pull things out as and when you need. So excellent point there. Now let's move to something which is a little bit more towards how the marketplace is evolving, right? So we have established order companies who've been in the business for a long time. They have responded to the market needs and transformed themselves. And then there are these challengers, these tech first companies. They could be logistic tech, fintech, or whatever you may call it, who are inherently wired to be built around a product mindset and with data at the heart of everything. And because they are wired for it, their ability to respond to change and to market demands is much more agile compared to maybe the institutionalized organizations who've been around for a long time. So question to you, Nisanka, right? How are larger institutions like banks and etc. responding to this challenge from the marketplace, which is thrown by these fintechs and companies, which come with this product mindset and a data first mindset?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So if you really look at startups, what they are really trying to, why they're so focused on product, the reason is because they're trying to find the product market fit. Now, if you really look at banking products, they haven't changed for the last century. The base products, you have a lending product, you have a deposit product, and you have an investment product. So those kind of ones haven't really changed a lot. But with the technology in the last 25 years, well, there has been a lot of changes. If you really look at nowadays, you may have a debit card or a credit card, but you don't carry the card anymore. You just go to the retailer. I hardly carry my wallet now. I always carry my phone because I can pay with my phone. When we started doing the mobile payments about 2014, way before the Google and the Apple big tech companies came along in Australia, there were a lot of people who asked me when I tap with my phone, with my Samsung phone, everybody asked, oh, can you really do that? But if you really look at banks, it's a kind of a misnomer because the bank is structured, the whole organization structure is structured against product. So the product teams call the shots. It's not anybody else. So we do have a very strong product mindset, which is driven by data. We have a huge data organization, analytics. And now the reason I want to highlight 2 points on this. Now, the first one is we are using data a lot to really find the adjacent requirements for the customers, and as well as why some customers they drop off, they come halfway through the acquisition process and then drop off. So we are looking at all the customer pain points and what he's trying to do with the product and try to find where else can we really help him with our products to address his other customer needs. And in the last 5 to 7 years, one thing we saw, and with the pandemic also it showed us a lot, the experience equal the product. So no longer, if you really look at a lot of products that are out there on the market, it's actually the experience that drives the product value proposition. So we really have seen that we have done a lot of work beyond what you call routine customer pain points to really go into different other experience archetypes, like on the customer journey, like what you call a trek. Now, when you do see a trek is like, you can see a lot of fitness apps do that, and where we help customers to save to buy a new car. How do you do that? We give them a lot of those kind of help. And then also we have using our mobile banking app, we also are using what you call For You. So it's something what you call an archetype called Joy, right? So you're using this app, all of a sudden you're saying, oh, did you know this, that you can really get this benefit? So we do have what you call a government benefit finder. So the app actually identifies, said, you could be eligible, come and have a look. So it's just really, and the last archetype is what you call Odyssey. And that's what the banks are really trying to do. And that product mindset has a huge change in the banks. Thanks. Over to you, Sashi.
Thank you, Nisanka. Kevin, do you want to build on that? How does this product mindset really drive quality innovation in organizations? How do you actually leverage it to unleash the value in your company?
Sure. So actually for us, I think we realized at some point that we cannot compete with the fintech because they are extremely client-centric. They do not have any legacy system. So they are delivering a better experience faster than we can do. Of course, we do have internal product team delivering for our client-facing product, our internal products platform, that we have. But when we are looking at very specific, strong value proposition from a fintech, we are doing partnership actually, and we have a few. We have a few going on. Why do we partner with fintech is because I think it's better for us to focus on our core business and the value that we can deliver to our clients versus trying to copying. So today we have a few partnerships going on with platforms who help us having a faster processes for private equity, for example, that we are doing a partnership with a platform today on that front. We're also exploring multiple other partnerships regarding other banking products like the mutual funds. How can we streamline the advisory process, was actually key for the sales funnel that we have in the private bank. But we're also looking at building platforms. So that was a very interesting project because it's not straightforward for a private bank to start an engagement platform to engage clients. And therefore, this is where we start touching a bit of the product mindset, because internally we really had to convince our legal team, our compliance team that there is a strong value proposition before building an engagement platform for clients. And we prototyped and we piloted this mobile application, social application, and we capture feedback that we bring back to the team. The way we have been able to do such project, and once again we have also collaborated with an external company to help us deliver the best-in-class experience for this mobile application. It was really to involve in the core team for this project all the various parties involved: legal, compliance, tech. Even if it was not built internally, we had the tech team part of the conversation, because what we do through this innovation setup is we test, we capture data, but we also plan for the future. And therefore, from business value, we also forecast and share back to the senior management how much it would cost to scale up this project to the entire bank. And therefore, this is really how do we approach change internally through the collaboration with external fintech. It comes with some challenges, obviously. I don't want to sound too optimistic and positive here in front of everyone. We are operating into a very regulated environment, and therefore, when we're talking about data used in a pilot, well, we cannot use real data, obviously, so we have to use mock data. When we're talking about building an engagement platform through a mobile application, we cannot engage directly client, ask them to enter their real name. So we do have a few, a very defined perimeter where we can play around, if I can put it that way. And it's okay. It's just once we know the boundaries, then we just focus on the best outcome we can get out of this pilot through this very narrow scope, and we move on. I can really share today that the mindset has changed in the past 3 years, from being forbidden 100% to use sensitive data, and therefore we have been piloting using public cloud, Google, AWS, until today. We're now at the heart of the conversation that we are having internally is how can we use client's name through a third-party platform? And the answer is not no. It's not a straight no that we are getting. Now it's how. And therefore, in 3 years, I can really see the shift happen. And it's a great progress.
It's a very good point. So I picked up a couple of things. One was the fact that rather than always looking at it from the point of view of competition, institutions are partnering with fintechs also to try and leverage their pace of change, the way they leverage innovation. At the same time, we are still bound by the same regulations and privacy concerns that the industry is. So we have to, like you said, not take a binary yes or no, but go deeper to figure out the how. Because in the end, without A/B testing, without trying to test new concepts, you will never have real good innovation happening. So a very good point. I think that's an excellent thing. Now let's move to something which is, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Shishir, I just want to add something to what Kevin said. There is on the partnerships, yes. We have gone beyond on partnership to another level now, is that we are actually outsourcing the tech build. So we recently launched a product called Kit that's for educating the children on how to get being financial savvy. So we used to build that in-house. We actually now gave the whole build to external partner. The whole app is built by an external partner. And we are looking at integrating that data in a different way. So it's just like if you really look at any Apple or Samsung iPhone, we really now do the product design. The build is now we are outsourcing the build. That's the new partnership model we just recently launched. I just want to add to that.
That's very interesting. No, very interesting. Excellent point, because you want to keep the IP or the thought process within the organization through design. But when it's about getting the time to market equation right, you are leaning on to partners. That's an excellent point. Thank you for sharing that, Nisanka. Very good. Let's move to something which has also seen a lot of change and disruption through the last 2-3 years. It's how people engage in the physical world or their customer journey, so to say, right? With more and more people having been forced to deal with digital realm to do their day-to-day stuff, whether it is shopping, dealing with a bank, telecom services, whatever it may be, right? So we all have now digital journeys that we are more used to, we're forced to be used to. The propensity to have things such as a chatbot layer for conversation, or to have a voice-based command layer, the equivalent of an Alexa sort of an interface, is no longer a aha moment, right? It's something where it's like a yes or no feature. Do you have it or not? People assume that at some point in time you will get there. Now, this is also being made possible by using data appropriately. And also these digital touch points are creating a wealth of data for you to personalize the experience even further. This is opening up very interesting use cases, these new digital channels or digital mediums to engage with the end customer. So Kevin, in your charter as the custodian for innovation in your organization, how are you looking at the role data is playing in some of these experiences that have been transformed because of these digital twins or these digital channels that have come about?
Yeah, great question. So customer journey mapping is the bread and butter of what my team is doing, because we have designers in the team who are really focusing on mapping during the analysis phase the existing journey all across the different touch points. So here we use a framework called the service design blueprint, where we put in parallel the customer experience, all the interaction with the actors being internally, as well as the platform who are here to support this journey. And then we use design thinking workshop to start mapping the opportunities that we have against this existing journey. And we capture data to map the time taken to perform a task, as well as the volume of transaction, if we are looking at some transaction journey, as well as the time taken into a back and forth, if we look at onboarding as an example. Therefore, as I was sharing, this is the bread and butter, because when we are focusing on one part of a user journey or customer journey, we are also sharing to the management what outcome we are driving through this project. If you look at onboarding for the conversation sake, onboarding, what are we trying to drive through a partnership with a fintech? Is it to speed up the onboarding journey? Is it to reduce the back and forth in between clients, front office, back office? Is it to shorten the onboarding journey? Of course, we always want to put everything in the same bucket, but it's not possible at first. So we have to break this down and track using data each of the phase that we are driving. So if we first focus on limiting the number of back and forth in between the front office and back office team and the clients on documentation, then here we have a very specific target. We run the pilot, then we capture data, and then we move on the next the next stage of the journey. And here, the type of report that we are delivering when we work on such project is the before-after impact that we are bringing through this innovation project, and the cost. And usually, the type of data that we are looking in such project is buy or build. So then the senior management are in a better position to take decision when we're looking at this scaling up phase.
Excellent. Good point. Rajneesh, I know you are in the kind of a B2B segment. You're in the value chain a little bit upstream, not really directly with the customer. But do you see in your purview and charter how some of these digital channels, such as maybe interfaces rather, like chatbots or digital twins of this nature, how have they improved decision making and the way decisions are taken in your organization? Any examples?
Yeah, so some very few example, as you said, that our customers are mostly internal colleagues who are in the manufacturing facility or the senior leadership team. So we are also exploring certain chatbots and Power Automate. Those features in the teams allows you to create some automated sequences. Yeah, so like for example, we have this training team that they used to get a lot of queries about basic stuff, how to run the report, how to find the training, what's overdue, and so on. So my team has started piloting a chat bot for that, and that's for internal colleagues. When they have basic query, they will just put it on the chat board, and they will get the some of the helpful links straight away, or answers straight away. It needs to evolve, but we have very few applications where we can really apply this. More on how we can automate the processes rather than because we don't have large audience that needs this kind of
Absolutely.
services, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. No, very good point.
Yeah.
I think when you're looking at providing the ease of information dissemination, right? Like you said, frequently asked questions, etc., rather than trying
Yeah.
to scroll through a bunch of things, you just have
Yeah.
an intelligent chatbot that knows typically what this role will ask and accordingly show options, etc. So to make that journey faster. So yeah, so there are applications in the entire value chain. Obviously, they may differ depending whether you are in the upstream in the value chain where you're talking to internal customers, or whether you have a B2C interface where you have a very large playground to do this. Nisanka, do
Yeah.
you want to also add to it? How have some of these customer journeys evolved in this digital world, and what role does data play in making these interactions valuable for the end customer?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Shishir. Yeah. Okay. The ways that has happened is, if you look at banking products, we are not physical products. They are all digital products. The problem we have always faced was to deliver those digital products, customers wanted physical interfaces. They wanted branches. They favored branches. That was the way people loved to interact, but it was very costly to the bank. So over the pandemic, what people didn't have an option, branches were closed and they didn't want to go out because you will get the down with the COVID-19 virus. So people had to resort and change their behavior. That whole thing brought us a lot more people to the digital channels on the engagement. And what we did was, like conversational interface, we embedded with the app. So the people will try to do something on the app if they cannot find. And then they always have the option to quickly find out how to do it, or connect with the back office, one of the team members who will help them over the conversation. Yeah, it has done a huge change because it really has helped us to develop new product concepts, also extend some of our products, because people are more willing to come on a digital interface like a mobile app. And that's going to be really exciting. Our future after the pandemic, that's what we are really seeing, the new products.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, Nisanka. That really helps. I'm going to move to you, Rajneesh, for a question, right? So a lot of the ability to have meaningful conversations inside the organization when you're taking decisions or when you're defining strategy comes from having a single source of truth, or SSOT as they call it in the industry, right? It is actually the fundamental building block on which you then take your decision making to the next level. So just from your experience, you would have seen the evolution of that single source of truth for a supply chain or the function that you're responsible for. How has that evolved? And typically, as you go about doing it, what are some of the challenges that are faced? Because I'm assuming You have a lot of external partnerships, you have a lot of internal partnerships, you have last mile partners in terms of logistics, etc. So when you look at all of this, what comes in the way of having a single source of truth, and how do companies really take that approach towards having a single source of truth?
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely essential to have a single source of truth. When you have a complex operation, you have different, you can say, the accountabilities and goals. So different functions can have their own priorities, and they can have a business within a business, right? So it's very, very important to get everybody on the same page, and so that everybody is singing from the same song sheet, as we say, right? So you should all be synchronized. So we have upstream, we have suppliers, we have our own manufacturing facility, we have downstream plants where we supply our products to for final manufacturing. So we need to make sure that we have single source of truth, and the data, we are not debating about the data, right? We should be taking action on the data. As I mentioned earlier, that the data comes from many, many, many systems. Like we have laboratory system, we have automation system that runs the manufacturing, we have the SAP, and we have the deviation management. In our business, deviation management is also a very significant system, very important system, because we are manufacturing pharmaceutical. We have to make sure all deviations are addressed before the product flows. So all these information that was scattered around, all these systems, various systems, we used to, in the past, the single source of truth was that everything used to have an Excel file. You export the data and you massage the data and try to make sense of it, and you try to defend your own function. That my function is okay. It's issues with the upstream or the downstream, and a lot of energy was wasted in just debating about it, and at the end, nothing meaningful was done. So we started as a company. We started a journey of something like Toyota production system. That's a very famous, excellent system where how they install the lean manufacturing in the Toyota factories, right? So we thought that we want to develop something similar. So we have come out with our own internal equivalent of Toyota production system that's called integrated manufacturing excellence, which is the right way, one way of manufacturing, applying all the excellence tools. Now, all these tools work only if you're working off a single source of truth, right? So in parallel to that, that integrated manufacturing excellence, we developed our own in-house solution, which pulls the data from all these systems, and it shows it at a batch level, so end-to-end information. So let's say we have one batch to be manufactured. What goes into manufacture that batch, where the batch is right now, and is there any deviation associated with that batch, and when is that batch needed by the downstream, right? So all this is pulled into one system, and it's used by the team on a daily basis to plan their work, to prioritize it, and make sure the flow is there. So the goal is to make sure that there is a flow of the product. As we say, as the theme of our discussion today is product mindset, right? I know it can mean different to different businesses, but for us, product is really a physical product, right? We manufacture our API, and that needs to flow, right? So everything that we do with single source of truth is designed to make sure that the product flows. It doesn't get stagnant, or it doesn't get stuck somewhere. It should be ultimately moving as fast as possible towards the patient, right? That's our ultimate goal. Why we exist in this upstream of the value stream. So I think this is really good. A combination of the excellence and bringing the data, integrated data into one place, is really enabling us to achieve that. Yeah, single source of truth. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Rajneesh. And just for our audience, when Rajneesh says API, it doesn't mean application programming interface. It's active pharmaceutical ingredients. I know sometimes in our conversations we tend to confuse, but I just want to make it very clear that he's talking about the active pharmaceutical ingredient, which is a key element of any pharma production, right? So thank you, Rajneesh.
Yeah.
Very good perspective from the manufacturing side of things. Kevin, Same question to you. Especially, and I'll pick on something that Nisanka mentioned earlier, which was you have these multiple value chain partners. You don't do everything yourself now, especially for financial institutions and banking. You do a lot of these partnerships. So you have, how do you still then take an approach towards having a single source of truth? We have seen in our example that we take a very bite-sized use case by use case approach towards doing it rather than trying to go big bang. What have been your experiences in trying to drive, Kevin, a single source of truth for decision making?
Sure. So interestingly, the innovation team, my team, is sitting in the data team, and so one of the main, the main project that the data team is driving today is to build a data platform. And so the model that is used is a hub and spoke type of approach, where, and to give some context, we start from an environment where we have a lot of legacy systems, and therefore one of the main goals is to have one source of truth through this data platform, but also is to educate any business unit in the bank about how to use data, to consume data, so that they can be a bit more autonomous. We're using Power BI. I think I heard Rajnish earlier mentioning Tableau. But Power BI is the tool that we use for any business unit to consume the reporting in a daily/weekly basis. And so so this is one of the main projects driven by the data team, how to build a single source of truth, but also how to manage external data. So as you just mentioned, we are partnering with a lot of data provider in order to get market prices, to just mention one. And therefore, we are also looking at centralizing this all this external data with the goal to have the data as a service in order to streamline the cost as well group-wide. I think today the multiple entity across the group are using the same data source. Is not the most efficient way of consuming them. Therefore, we're really looking at both, having this hub and spoke model internally and how to better consume data from external sources.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I think we have about 10, 12 odd minutes left on the clock. Let's take a few questions from the audience. And again, I would invite all the panelists here to step in. I'll just pick a few questions right here. One is, let me see. From Fran Young from Veridapt. How can we help customers adopt SSOT platforms faster? So I think this is about the pace of adoption. So any of the panelists here, if you want to step in, how can we help customers adopt SSOT faster?
I can share how we are working on the key user journey for the data platform, because the way we prioritize the key journey. We look at how critical they are. And here we're looking at from a client perspective. For example, one of the top journeys to ensure that the data is the same across all touch points, being digital or a statement. This is one of the top ranking journey that we have, ensure consistency of the data across all channels. But one of the exercises that we did to prioritize those journeys, first, one, identify all of them. And we did spend a lot of time going across user journey mapping as we talked about a few minutes ago, and then we look at how all these journeys are involved alongside the client journey, because client journey is our top priority, and we have to ensure that we are adequately supporting any of the journey that we have, looking at the life cycle of the clients, and this is how we prioritize the key journey for the single source of truth.
Got it. There's a very related question here from Mahmood Sharif, a product owner at Telstra. Maybe Kevin, you can start and the others can step in again. It says, do you have a mechanism, or maybe we can expand that to say, do we have a mechanism to collect regular feedback on products from end users and loop that feedback back into product development?
I can add in there.
Yeah, please, Sandra, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, it is a must now. So we do have all the customer complaints, everything is collected. So when you do talk about a single source of truth, we also need their customer complaints all collected properly from social media, all the customer engagements and also then we use AI, machine learning algorithm models to really identify and categorize where are the customer pain points and what is the impact from that, and try to derive the product roadmap on some of the areas. We do call so we have growth, we have resilience. So there are different strategy arms. So resilience of those, there are a number of issues where we do handle using that. Yes. Just in addition to that, the previous question, I just want to add something. Yes, all the banks have to have a single source of truth, a single source of system or truth to the data. The biggest challenge we have is when you do have that, how do you give bite sizes of the data to different partners, vendors, and we have to really ensure the cybersecurity, and we cannot use any compromising even when the data goes through the cloud systems. And I think one of the technology we do use, I think a lot of you must be familiar, is using, we do tokenization of that data. So the customer really, you don't give everything. We just give you a token to come back to say, we will say, yes, that's valid. So we don't really give you the data. Yeah.
Very good point. And I think tokenization deserves a whole new webinar on itself. It's one of the most adopted and widely adopted ways in trying to still keep the sanctity and obfuscation of data while still making use of it for product development. So thank you for bringing that point up. There's a very interesting question from Abhik Panda here, which says, how are we adopting citizen development? I think that's something that has come about quite a bit, where you open this up to the large audience. Citizen development and digital transformation. Any of the panelists here want to step in on this particular question?
Okay, just an interesting one. I just want to add on that, Shishir, based on the Commonwealth Bank's vision for our citizens. So we want a brighter future for all. That's our vision. Now, because earlier we used to say we want to make you financially better, but if you really look at citizens, they are not interested only that. Now the banks have to evolve beyond that. So our CEO and the board has recognized it after the pandemic. And when the way we help a lot of people, it was not only financially. People wanted a lot more than financial from banks to step in. And that's where we really saw the role the banks are going to play into the post-pandemic future is how do you make for all those citizens a brighter future? How do we help with them, their energy? Now, we are helping, not financially, in different options, help with their energy crisis. How do we help with them to have a better education? All those things do come up. It's a big pyramid, yes. You can have a look more in, I think they are publicly available, those strategies, if you do search. Thank you.
Sure, excellent. I think we have one good question, which probably would have all of our panelists weigh in, and then we can give it back to Svetlana here. Good question to top it all off. It says, what are some of the most efficient and effective ways to know whether digital transformation is working at your org? Right. So I think Nikhil here is trying to understand, fine, you're doing all of this cool stuff, but how do you know whether it's working, and how are your organizations trying to put a premium on the actual ROI aspect of it and not just doing a bunch of things? So Kevin, I see you smiling, so I'll go to you. How do you approach this question?
I mean, it's a great question. I'm smiling because we had internally the same question related to innovation and how can we prove to the senior management that we are delivering value to the organization beyond the buzzwords, right? And therefore, I think what we do is a pulse check internally to really get a sense from the employees about how they feel about the transformation. If it's, well, how is it working for them? So a bit of an internal NPS on the transformation journey. We also track actually all the deliveries and the value that we're adding. As I was mentioning earlier, we track the before-after impact of everything we do, and therefore then we are able to bring back to the management the value of the deliveries of such project. And yeah, that's about it. So culture transformation, we track that, and we track at the new project deliver as well. We do monitor precisely the value delivered.
Excellent.
That's how we do it.
Excellent. Rajneesh, you want to add to it? In your firm, how do you really look at whether something worked or not from a digital transformation perspective?
Yeah. Actually, I want to share one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs. I'm really passionate about that. He says that if you define the problem correctly, you almost have the solution. And I really strongly believe in this because most of the time we are surrounded with so many solutions, so many cool gadgets, right? And it doesn't even give us a chance to think about what problem we want to work on, what is the pain point, what does the business need, and we end up embarking on those solutions without knowing what the problem is. So that when that happens, we can't really tell whether we are making a difference because we just adopt it for the sake of adopting. And we have some examples where we took those things, but they do not last long because they are not solving a compelling problem. You really need to spend a lot of time to maintain those, and it will just die on its own, right? So the way to measure that are we making a difference is you must start with the right problem. Pick the right problem, and so that because if you pick the right problem, you're going to measure it because that's the most important thing, and you try to apply solutions to that, and you'll be able to see whether that is that parameter improving, is your business improving, bottom line improving, or the employee satisfaction improving, or even customer satisfaction improving, right? And then as part of the regular surveys, you can always ask them how is it making a difference, or you can build in some smart analytics in the system itself in terms of looking at the adoption rate. Like, for example, the system that I mentioned, the single source of truth, that system, right? We have put a user statistics in that. The proof is in the pudding. If you roll out a cool system for 100 people and you find out that only one person is using it, you know that system is really not useful to them. But if you find that 90 people are using it on a regular basis and you can do the trending, and you know that, okay, it is working, it is solving their difficulties. So I think just build those things because all these there are a lot of things that can be done. And to start with the right problem, then adoption will be there, ROI will be there.
Excellent. Very good point. Svetlana, I know we are at the top of the hour, in fact, a minute over. So I would hand this back to you. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I think we had some wonderful points coming in all dimensions, but I want to be respectful of our allotted time. So back to you, Svetlana.
Thank you so much, Shishir, and thank you all for sharing these great insights indeed, as Shishir just mentioned, and for being so generous with your time today. Just a quick reminder to look out for an email within the next 2 hours with links to download today's materials. And if you would like to learn more about Altimetric services, you can request a discovery call with them directly by clicking widget discovery as set up a discovery call. And we would like your feedback, so if you could take a minute to answer our very brief survey that will pop up at the end of the session, that will be very much appreciated. On behalf of Altimetric and Marco 7's webinars, we would like to thank you all for joining us today, and we do hope that you will be listening at our next webinars. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.